Hello, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome. Since 2016, I've been answering your questions, giving advice and inspiration to countless gamers. Here, you can ask questions in the comments and get your own videos as an answer. So I encourage you, enjoy by all means. But come back to visit with your friend, the Dungeon Tutor. Hello friends, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome! Today is the third day of RPGaDay 2025, and today's topic is Tavern. Now, what's more iconic for role-playing games than taverns? How many campaigns have started in taverns? How many campaigns have parties that drift through taverns? Major events that take place, and they can be a lot of fun to play in. But it's almost like it's its own different world, isn't it? The tavern is a chaotic place, potentially. A place where all kinds of things can happen, good and bad. But a lot of times, when the party gets done with long travel, for instance, and they decide they're going to go to the tavern and rest and recuperate, what happens? Things kind of go off the rails, and either the game master has a preset encounter or something waiting for them, or the players fumble through things like ordering food and drinks, or figuring out what each of them wants to do. In few other places like a tavern is a party frequently going to be tempted to split up, as everybody might have their own thing to do. And sometimes having a group around you can really shackle you and inhibit what you can do. Therefore, I have a suggestion on how you can handle the goings-on of taverns, and you could expand this out into towns, cities, and villages if you want, but this was ideally something I came up with for taverns. And this isn't a unique idea, it's cobbled together from a variety of different games, but first of all, if you have a hard time with taverns in your games, I can tell you that there's a lot of resources out there. For example, something like this, Local Legends, which has, I believe, 10 different taverns, layouts, and playmats so that you can play right on them, can come in very handy. And I know that my friends in GUI Cube certainly have a tavern book too, which is kind of like a travel log throughout the world of Xayathay. There's hardcover books with more taverns, there's a lot. So you don't have to be that creative to have a really interesting and fascinating tavern, but if you're looking for something that maybe is more realistic, or sometimes fantastical, all you have to do is look at real-world taverns and bars, and you'll find inspiration. Old taverns that are 2 rooms big, with just one big cask, a bunch of bottles, and has been in operation for hundreds of years. This is a great resource to use yourself, as well as any interesting encounters that you might want in a place where a large number of the population may come through to, take some steam off, relax. Alcohol is often very cheap for the easily produced stuff, so even poorer people can still come to the tavern from time to time. And of course, the well-to-do might have their own taverns entirely, which may provoke a different kind of experience. But what do you do when you get to the tavern and the party just we all want to cluster together at one table, all of us order food, all of us order drinks, we do okay, and then we kind of peel off and different people go retire for the night or something. Have you ever had this happen in your games? I sure have. And honestly, the dungeon is a fine place for all the players to cluster together. But once you get into towns and villages where there's the modicum of security and safety, that kind of thinking is it doesn't fit real-world people. Most folks, yeah, they might enjoy the company of their friends, but they don't want to stay welded to the hip to them. So as a result, I have a suggestion that might prove useful to you. This works with parties where players have realized their characters, have wants, needs, and desires, and therefore they don't necessarily need to stay all together at once. And this is called social initiative. Social initiative is fairly straightforward. It's giving those people who do best in social circumstances a platform where they can use their skills, as opposed to all those other skills involving combat and dungeons. This is an important part of a lot of characters, in some cases a lot of campaigns, but it rarely works with the system as they are. And this does again include things like Dungeons and Dragons. where most of the characters' abilities are going to be organized towards combat. Well, these characters also want to enjoy themselves sometimes too, so having another set of rules can be kind of useful, especially when those rules dovetail in with the actual rules, so you don't have to invent new things out of whole cloth. Now, my concept is really relatively simple. The world of taverns, as I said, is a little bit different from other places that you might visit. And as such, different rules are appropriate to apply. First of all, the actual social initiative. And that is, whereas in combat, your initiative determines who goes first, in a tavern, your social initiative determines who gets to go first and more dynamically, perhaps. So, therefore, you roll, but instead of using something related to your reflexes, you instead use your social attribute to determine what your modifier is going to be for your initiative. And then you would make a roll. In some cases, having a high roll allows you to go first. In some cases, it allows you to go where you choose in the order. The second one is a little bit more useful, because then a person with high charisma might watch over their friends and try to help them out if they're fumbling or possibly, having a disastrous result. And the person who rolls the highest, of course, then gets to go first. That makes sense. Now, again, this is for people who actualize their characters, meaning they're more than just a series of stats. They're doing more than just figuring out how to get bigger numbers. They actually have things their characters want, things that they do that may be against their best interests, their flaws. They may have bonds with other people they may be interested in expanding on or deepening, or looking for other people to form bonds with. New friends, lovers, acquaintances, information sources, whichever, they're all fine. And in this case, you allow your players to do that. Now, you may artificially stimulate that. There are certainly games, for instance, that give everybody a goal in a given social situation. And as a game master, you might think about doing that, saying, hey, there's a reward. Let's say if your character craves romance, there's a reward if you make a new friend of the opposite sex, or the same sex, depending on your, whatever you're going with. You'll get some inspiration. You'll get a bonus to experience. You'll get something to show that your effort was worth it. Some small reward. Generally not a physical one. You're not going to give them a pouch of gold because they got lucky that night. No. But it's something that motivates them to think beyond just shutting down in a situation. It's like, I just want my character to eat, have something to drink, enjoy being around my friends, and then go to bed. Usually in a tavern, though, the game master may want things to happen to the players, and that's hard to do when the players shut down, when they try to avoid the storyline the game master is trying to give them. Now, that is certainly a possibility of giving rewards and bounties for people who do the best. On the contrary, avoiding certain things can also be a motivating factor. For instance, if you have say a barbarian with poor impulse control, you may say as a point of building their character that they wish to have fun and indulge, but not to excess. The others have talked to them and confirmed it. You want to, the player has understood the character does want to trim it down. That may be a growing point for their character, and you can reward that. That may certainly be something that you consider doing to help your characters develop. Just don't be too heavy-handed with it. Don't make it something that they need or gives somebody else an unfair advantage. Just, I notice what you're doing, and I want to reward you for that. And that's cool. Another thing, social versions of skills often will use other attributes. For example, we know that most games have a stealth ability, some way that you can avoid notice. But in a tavern, you're not invisible, you're not hiding in shadows or anything, but I know plenty of people who are wonderful at blending into a crowd. Therefore, social stealth becomes a useful skill. And it would be based, again, on your, whatever governs your personal aura and charisma might be. This can work for any kind of game. So, and also acknowledging there are some games that already have social combat, social stealth, and things like that. So, there you go. Another thing, too, that sometimes is a gripe about taverns is that either the players want to just get through it, it's just there as a means to an end, or they spend too long. They always end up in this big fight, or one half of the group does one thing, one half of the group does another thing. That's well and good, but what you can do is to cut that down and to consolidate it. If you're going to give the players an opportunity to go to a tavern or some kind of an establishment where they can relax, unwind, enjoy themselves, and their characters might have motivations to do different things. They're looking for information that they're tracking down. They're looking for a specific person or information of a person. They're looking for an item that may not be able to be found just in a store. They're confirming some details. They are trying to get perhaps a recipe, or they want to purchase an order of drink or something like that. Perhaps let them know the session before and say, hey, the opportunity to go to a tavern is going to present itself. What would your character like to do? And then at the beginning of the session, let them hand in anything that their characters want to do. If they don't want to do anything, this is purely optional participation. But if they do, you're prepared, and you can look at what they want to do and figure out how to consolidate it down to just 1-2 dice rolls. Nothing too complicated to keep this story going, because rarely do you want to spend an entire night in a tavern in an existing campaign. If you do, that's cool. But if you don't, one of the advantages are to most role-playing games is that they can take an abstract situation, all the ups and downs of it, and consolidate it down into a single die roll if you're ready to do that. If you're not, then you're going to get trapped in that, okay, this happens, go ahead and roll. Okay, that happens, then this is going to happen, go ahead and roll. You may not want to do that. You might, absolutely might, and especially if you're giving players who don't often get a lot of spotlight, like a non-combatant characters not focused on combat, but they've just been through a tedious dungeon crawl where all the combat characters got to show off their stats, and they just kind of supported everybody. Maybe did some healing, maybe pointed out a trap or two, and swung a couple of things in anger, and that was about it. This gives them a chance to do some things without tying up the whole night, letting them accomplish some ambitions that they might have and pursue their own goals. So, if you look at how you can change existing stats to help in social situations, and understand that something like just traveling around away from your party and talking to people and doing the things that you really want your character to do, that's all something that can happen in much the same way that any other encounter happens. An initiative roll, when your turn comes up, you don't have to look at everybody else and ask, what's everybody else doing? You'll see what's happened with the people who've gone before, and then you can decide to go and act by yourself, or you can wait for somebody else to go so that you can go with them to do something. It should always be possible for you to defer or delay your actions so that you can see what other people are doing. One of the advantages of being early is that you get to see everything and decide when you want to dynamically act. Another thing that you can do, once you start doing this, the whole group might take notice, and those early people might really treasure their advantages, is if you're going to have an encounter pre-planned come in, consider adding it in as an item in the inventory. You can roll for it if you like, or you can just set it at a certain time, so that people who come in and are naturally dynamic socially may be able to do something or accomplish a couple of things before the actual event happens, which can happen like a cutscene. Something happens. The wizard falls through the door, huge wound in his back, crawls over to the player's table and drops the scroll on the ground before he dies. Classic, right? You can do that and let the people who are good socially be rewarded if they roll a good social initiative by being able to do something before that. And heck, if it obviates the thing that you were going to have happen, for example, bugbears are going to attack, but one of your players decides they're going to go walk out on the porch where the bugbears are going to be coming from, they might see them first and be able to go, hey everybody, bugbears are about to attack us. And now it's not a surprise. That person looks like a genius, and the group has the advantage that that surprise is nullified. Pretty cool, huh? Let somebody, have their moment to shine. And ultimately, taverns really give people a chance to shine. If you're going to have a combat in a tavern, rarely is it a to the death kind of thing where your people who can kill a person 20 different ways doesn't get to really show off. In that case, some of these other lights of people who don't necessarily have the same strong combat abilities to kill their opponents, or wizards who normally can waste half of a dungeon with their spells, now don't want to kill people because they don't necessarily want to be tried for murder. So now they have to kind of let other people take their opportunities and perhaps contribute in a less dynamic way, which can definitely allow improvisational thinking and creativity to enter into your combat scenario. I would also generally recommend in taverns and tavern brawls, allow people to knock folks out rather than kill, unless you're using some sort of a weapon. Anything from bar stools to mugs to, halflings, whatever you want to do. Just, make the killing optional in those scenarios. I know it's not realistic. D&D isn't a realistic game. Most role-playing games aren't realistic games. It's fine. It's okay. But taverns can be wondrous places that don't necessarily obey the same rules of reality. And that's not a bad thing. That could be a really good thing. I would also one time suggest, if you've never done it before, sometime give your players the opportunity to just spend an entire session in a tavern, encouraging them to kind of unfold their characters a little bit. Unless your players are really, really good about this anyhow, maybe encourage them to talk about their backstories a little bit. Something comes out, something reminds them of something. Maybe they look to the fire and they see their own village burning that they came out of. And while they're lost in the fire, somebody else looks at them and notices they look stricken. And maybe that player chooses at that point to let something come out. If that's the case, be used to giving out a reward for players who divulge, who take advantage of those opportunities. Inspiration isn't obvious, but you can only have one inspiration point at a time. And players who give and give and give and give and give will not get anything unless they're burning the inspiration as quickly as you give it to them. In my experience, it doesn't happen a lot. So, what I would recommend is some alternate way of possibly doing something. The player feels better. They gain temporary hit points, perhaps. Or perhaps the character implies a bonus. I know that with my friends at GUI Cube, we have something called GUI Rewards, which are one-time use cards that you get when you do something awesome. And when you achieve milestones, sometimes the party can dice for who gets a GUI reward. And my players love them. They're small little bonuses, so if you get a GUI Cube product, including, potentially, my own adventure that I wrote, a Strangely GUI Holiday, it comes with a couple of these GUI reward cards. Think about that. Tavern rewards, for example, or interlude rewards, all can be pretty handy. Now, of course, I got the idea for interludes from Savage Worlds. It's a wonderful character building ability to insert into a game and say, hey, here's time you guys can talk amongst each other. If you choose to, there's a penny for you. You can use this yourself for other games too. And that is the advantage of having a breadth of role-playing games, is you can bring those things to other games, adapt them, and make your game richer. Taverns are magic. And if you incorporate that into your game and respect that, taverns might not be seen as drudgery, but as a wonderful opportunity that players might cling to even more than dungeons. Just a word of advice. Now, you may already be using this, and that's wonderful. If you are, leave in the comments. Let us know how smart you are. If you are not, and you think this is great, and by all means, use it. Enjoy it. I hope you do. But what I really do hope is that we're going to keep doing these RPGaDays, so I hope you come back, because I want to see you again. And if you do, in that magical time between then and now, I hope that you, yes, you, get a chance to roll some dice, play some games, have some fun. But stay safe out there, friends. Until that next time, farewell.